In Terraria, you normally kill a lot of enemies, so I decided to do a playthrough where I killed only strictly required enemies. For the purposes of this run, an enemy is anything with a bestiary entry. This is so that kills can be tracked easily. Things that do not have a bestiary entry do not have to be considered when fighting. Enemies dying on their own, like in lava in the caverns, doesn't count against me, but I will avoid using the drops. I also set a few checkpoints to prevent earlier parts of the run from getting stale. One after the zoologist arrives, one after the wall of flesh, and one after the third mechanical boss. With that out of the way, let's begin. The first thing I did upon spawning was box up the guide. I didn't want him to attack slimes, since during daytime slimes only chase the player once they are damaged. I got a fruit and then stumbled into a dark cave. I didn't have torches yet. It was unsafe to swing anything, as there could be a critter somewhere. After stumbling out of the cave, I found a desert and got skewered by an antlion charger. I was going to need the guide to critter companionship for this playthrough, so my first goal was 54 bestiary entries, the requirement for the zoologist to spawn. I checked out the other side of spawn, and got torches from a pot, then went caving. Platinum and iron were the only ores I cared about. I got a cloud in a bottle and suspicious-looking eye from my first chest, both useful items. The second chest had a magic mirror, which was nice. Below there was my first life crystal. I had to box off enemies to survive, but thankfully, blocks are abundant. The first night was a blood moon, but it didn't matter, as the surface was unsafe anyway. I kept caving, got Hermes boots, then set up a station to craft the first key item. A platinum watch. During nighttime, a fallen star can hit an enemy, and that kill would be attributed to me, instantly ending the run. By being underground, no enemies could be on the surface at night. Once the sun rose, I set up a starter base and got back to exploring. The jungle was on the right, and I saw a few critters and got an umbrella. You know, for the rain. I tried to get past the corruption biome to the left and was forced to recall. The merchant had arrived, so I just got a piggy bank for now. I went caving again, getting 2 coin portals. Also saw a mouse that probably didn't survive YouTube's compression. After finding the skeleton merchant, I ran out of things to do, so I placed walls to prevent worms from spawning and waited out in the night. Once it was daytime again, I bought a bug net to catch critters, crafted a bed to speed up the night, and went to the sky. There's a small section at the center of the world where harpies cannot spawn until hard mode, so it was easy to start blocking off fallen stars. I used 10 rope coils to measure how far down I wanted my sky bridge, then covered up the area around spawn. I'd expand it later. Next, I made a desert house to help spawn desert critters, and revisited the jungle. If you try to place rope on the top half of these plants, they just break. After visiting the ocean and getting nothing major, I went to the left, finding the ice biome and dungeon. I was feeling brave, and visited the underground desert. There are a handful of awesome items you can get down there, and I got 2 of the best ones right away, rewarding Dune Rider boots and a bass statue. Once it was night again, I started mining again, and got up to 180 max HP. At this point, I was just searching for bestiary entries. And checking places for a good loot, like the magic conch. I broke a shadow orb for the musket and then kept mining. I found more life crystals, but I would not be using them for a long time. The bestiary was nearing 10% completion, so I made an underground house to facilitate gem critter spawning. And with the capture of the Diamond Bunny, the bestiary had 54 entries, so I awaited the zoologist's arrival. Then, I purchased the Guide to Critter Companionship, making it so I can never kill a critter by accident ever again. The first 2 attempts died to a worm plus pickaxe incident. Next, I made some progress on the Sky Bridge. I got the shiny red balloon, which would be used for the rest of the game. I also did some more mining for a full set of platinum armor, as well as set up a few pylons and visited the snow biome. I was after the blizzard in a bottle, the best double jump I could get in a reasonable time frame. I also purchased the Extendo Grip, one of the best decisions I made in the entire run. It made doing anything involving blocks a lot easier. After extending the Sky Bridge further, I found Star Fury, which would be used later. I also mined a Demonite for a bow, also for later. Next I found the Shimmer biome, where I used a Vital Crystal, set up a pylon and shimmered some spare Hunter and Water Walking potions. The ingredients were useful for something later. I also shimmer reforged several colors of string to warding, again for later. The Gravedigger's shovel is an essential item for this playthrough. I started removing ash blocks from the underworld with it, which were then used to finish the Sky Bridge. I figured the shovel would also be great for the jungle, so I used it to explore down there. I found some nice tools, and after a close call, a boomstick. Between the boomstick and my armor, I was ready for Skeletron. The arena would be a simple spawn-proof box. Despite my lack of max HP, I could easily survive the fight thanks to my defense and regeneration. In the dungeon, I broke pots by placing rope to avoid dealing damage in hopes of a golden key. I found one in a chest deeper in the dungeon, and opened one of the first chests I saw, getting the Cobalt Shield, another staple accessory. I also remembered to grab a bewitching table, which I transformed into an alchemy table with shimmer. While I was at it, I also shimmer reforged an obsidian skull, since it gives one more defense than most other accessories I could craft. I also built a fancy little base, putting sorted chests underneath relevant crafting stations. Next up was an unholy amount of digging. I had to sanitize hell so thoroughly Coca-Cola would feel comfortable putting ads on it. To help break that up, I did fishing quests, obtaining the golden fishing rod and a supply of crate potions for later. I also thought ahead and dug out a Plantera arena. By spawn-proofing the area where harpies can't spawn, I made it safe to collect fallen stars in the middle of my sky bridge. This let me get mana stars reliably and somewhat quickly. Clearing the underworld was nearing completion, so I gave the dungeon one last visit, finding a second golden key. I opened a random chest with it in hopes of a shadow key, which I did get. This allowed me to remove shadow chests from the underworld, making it just a little bit more reliable. In order to prevent enemies from spawning, I made pillars with walls above every hell forge. This way there was no chance a hellbat could spawn and become a victim of vehicular manslaughter. Last but not least, I actuated all of the hellstones since I can't break it yet. Without doing this, there's a risk of leeches flinging themselves into my minecart, instantly killing the run. After placing the rail, it was time to finally take on the wall of flesh. Here was the plan. Using Star Fury, I could reliably damage the wall without hurting the hungry. Because of the accessories I shimmer reforged earlier, I could sustain the wall of flesh's laser attacks. The fight would not go quickly. The underworld being hollowed out prevented leeches from hurling themselves into me. In my testing, I barely got hit, but something was wrong. I was taking way more hits than expected. Once the wall's damage would ramp up, it would become unsustainable. I tried to dodge, but decided it would be best to just focus on damage output. The hungry started falling behind. They blocked Star Fury's attacks. I waited for them to recede as far as they could, and finished the wall with the demon bow. I did it. I was in hard mode. If you were looking closely, you might have seen some explosives near the center of the underworld. Once the wall of flesh is defeated, Hellstone loses its immunity to explosions, meaning I could pick some up without a powerful enough pickaxe. I did so remotely so that no enemies could get caught in the explosion. Using the ore acquired from this, I made a molten pickaxe and got to smashing altars. I needed to smash altars to get the mechanical bosses to spawn naturally. This is why I can only have 180 max HP. If you have at least 200 max HP and have smashed an altar, the pirate invasion can spawn, which would prevent the cultists from spawning in later, killing the run. I used the molten pickaxe to go through the tiers of hard mode ore, being extremely careful not to hit enemies when near lava. Afterwards, I did some fishing. I was after a specific item, divine crates. While normally borderline useless, in this playthrough they're fantastic. Normally you'd get souls of light by killing enemies, but here I have to use these crates, which have a chance to drop just a few. Similarly, Hematic crates drop souls of night, as well as ichor, both excellent items to have that are normally obtained faster by killing enemies. I thought of that and the following strategy while clearing out the underworld. When you throw a potion into Shimmer, there's a 1 in 3 chance of each ingredient being destroyed. This is to counteract the 1 in 3 chance of saving an ingredient when crafting at the alchemy table. This means when crafting and then shimmering potions, you end up with an average of 8/9 of what you started with, on average. Because of the random nature of this, there's a chance you get more of one specific ingredient than you started with. In this case, I'm focused on vertebrae. If I happen to get lucky, I can turn the few battle potions from the underworld pots into enough vertebrae for a mechanical worm. After thinking I ran out of luck because the last vertebra got stuck, I got insanely lucky. 2 potions. 4 potions. 6 potions. 13 potions. 7 vertebrae. Enough for a worm. I already had lenses from shimmering suspicious-looking eyes from chests earlier on. This allowed me to skip 2/3 of the waiting, since the only mechanical boss I'd need to wait for was Skeletron Prime. I only had a few more preparations to do. Get fin wings from a fishing quest, solving mobility problems. This was luckily like the 4th hard mode fishing quest. Build a long flat platform to use shortly. And build a spawn-proof box to fight certain bosses in. My first target was the Destroyer, a major problem boss. The probes have a bestiary entry and thus absolutely cannot be killed for the run to survive. The problem is, they spawn in such numbers that it's unrealistic to avoid the probes and the boss for long enough to win the fight, and you can't just blow the thing up because probes would get caught in the blast. The best solution I could think of was boulders. While they don't give me kill credit, which could potentially cause me to kill something without knowing it, they do little enough damage and enough knockback to knock the probes out of their path without killing them while tearing apart the Destroyer. On a good attempt. However, I made a mistake and ended up failing to align the destroyer with my boulder runway. This resulted in me frantically teleporting between oceans, ducking below the sky bridge to not spawn harpies, and praying that the probe stayed intact as I spammed boulders. I can't say for sure, but I think the probe swarm was healthy enough to not feel the need to reset over it. I did forget to shoot the destroyer once myself, so I'll add the kill in at the end later. Using the shark fins from earlier in the run, obtained by shimmering those hunter and water walking potions, I crafted the Mega Shark, an absurdly powerful weapon capable of tearing down most of the remaining bosses. The twins fell in under 2 minutes, and Skeletron Prime followed. Get back here! While the fights were a little scary due to my low HP, I handled it fine. Next up was Terraria. I did die to her once, and reloaded the checkpoint save I made to not have to wait for another bulb. The jungle is crammed full of enemies most of the time, so I needed a way to despawn stuff. I used materials from my old molten pickaxe to craft the lava-proof bug net to do a bit of lava fishing. Using the Obsidifish, I made a handful of potions of return, which would allow me to despawn enemies easily. I grabbed my buffs, used the potion of return, and got to killing the boss. Her first phase ended up doing a lot of damage to me, as I prioritized being in position for the second phase. But it worked out. And, Gollum, I know rent is getting expensive, but a studio apartment is not a suitable place for a boss fight. This is much better. The large arena did actually turn out to be a double-edged sword, since while Golem wasn't a threat, too many stray shots into that angry trapper would kill the run. Thankfully, I didn't miss too much. Golem dropped the Heat Ray, the best possible item. It's a high-damage, direct-fire, single-target weapon. Absolutely perfect for zapping one enemy at a time. After building some artificial cover for the pillars, it was time to take out the cultist. I used my life crystals in the morning of the battle. First, I kited him across the world until I got to my spawn-proof arena from earlier, where I finished him off. This is it, the end game. I kill one pillar enemy, I have to finish off the entire rest of the pillar before I log off. First, I took on the Nebula pillar, the one I find the most exhausting to put up with. I only killed Nebula floaters to make counting easier later. Next, I did the solar pillar. There's a weird bug causing crawltipedes to self-destruct randomly. It wasn't fallen stars since I had the sky bridge blocking those off, so the cause is unknown. I'll count them as my kills for the sake of the final kill count being correct. I don't want to reduce the kill count by not claiming credit for relevant kills. I shimmer reforged Daybreak for the best modifier. The Stardust pillar would be the easiest, as I could farm star cells and the enemies coming directly from the pillar. Once it was defeated, I crafted the Stardust Dragon and re-rolled it for Brute Force, as well as turned my armor and emblem into summoner stuff. Last but not least was Vortex. After a while I started using the speedrun cheese for it, and then finally took out the pillar once I felt ready. Enemies can spawn during the Moonlord's 60-second spawning sequence, so I couldn't just wait at my arena. I had a plan for this. After the pillar was dead, I recalled to my spawn point set in the middle of the boulder runway. I broke the whole house, flew up a bit, and used a potion of return. At spawn, I collected my buffs and waited. The moment the Moonlord spawned, I used the return portal, summoned my dragon, and got to fighting. Since there are no enemies present and the Moonlord suppresses spawns, it was safe to fight. While I could sync the two Eyes of Cthulhu, it was unnecessary. Making sure they all get released around the same time was the only important detail. The Moon Lord was defeated. I promptly despawned my dragon so it didn't eat a slime immediately after the fight. I originally wanted to finish editing this in time for April 20th, but the audio issues I had to work around killed my motivation. Thankfully it's done now, so thanks for watching. See you. Also, it'll be a bit before you see another full playthrough. I'm working on a completely stupid challenge run again. Roughly on the scale of No Equipment Legendary Mode, yay!